I'm Dr. Ben Newman. I study coronaviruses for a living, and I have since long before this particular outbreak, let me tell you. All right, let's answer some questions. Our next question is from Julie. Yeah, good morning, Julie. Let's see. Hi. And apologies in advance for the long question. It's fine, whatever. If you got a lot to say it. Yeah. Let's see. So this is talking about a response to the question about a virus spreading through the AC and how that's unlikely. Just because we haven't seen any, I haven't read any good explanation, any good scientific, well-grounded papers that show that this is possible. And there are a lot of reasons to think why it's probably not likely. I guess anything is possible in a one out of a billion sort of way, but that's right now, those are not the risks that we need to be containing, or rather, once we have knocked out the, I don't know, 1 in 10 or 1 in 20 risk right now of COVID infection, then I think we can go and we can look at some of these other things. That will be a luxury, and I will be glad to have that luxury if we ever get there. I don't know if we'll ever get there. Anyway, back to your question. So let's see. Okay, but I remember an article in while ago, earlier in the year, from South Korea, maybe, noting places that COVID spread. And one of the examples was an office where a significant number of folks who worked on one floor became ill. Yes. If I remember correctly, the thinking was that airflow in the office was responsible. Yes, I know what you're talking about. There are actually a couple of studies like this. There are studies of the cruise ship, the Diamond Princess, and airflow patterns there. There's studies of a restaurant where a bunch of people got infected, and other studies like this. So yeah, and from what I have seen, this was featured on a recent. It's called Cold Spring Harbor. They bring together coronavirus experts and experts on whatever that are working on coronavirus, and have little conferences. They're kind of cool. Yeah. Anyway, the idea behind this is that, or from what I understand, and from these other examples, the idea behind it is that it's not that the virus is coming through the airflow. I mean, that's what you would think. That's the moving part here, and so you'd say, "Oh, yeah, that's the way it's happening." I think the idea is that it's insufficient airflow, and so for you to get sick in an office building, two things have to happen. One is that there has to be another person there who actually has the virus in probably the same room as you, or real close to the same room. And then the second thing that has to happen is that virus has to be able to reach you in enough quantity and for enough time that eventually you build up enough virus that you'll get one that breaks through your defenses, gets past your mucus and all that stuff, and actually starts an infection. Low airflow can lead to pockets where these little respiratory droplets that are in the air will just hang out. And those have definitely been implicated in some of the big outbreaks and some of the medium-sized outbreaks. This is the best explanation that we have so far, but it's very difficult to track these things. You can do an experiment with respiratory droplets where you sort of breathe or talk into a box, and you can count them there, and you can count how many viruses are in there. You can do an epidemiological sort of crime scene investigation where you try and figure out, okay, we've got a cluster of cases in an office. How could this have happened? But there's no good way to do the experiment in real time or actually show where the virus was or how it happened. That's the difficulty here. But yeah, it seems to be low airflow, allowing virus to hang around, and a person in the vicinity, probably without a mask, emitting virus, a nice constant stream of virus, which an infected person, even if they're asymptomatic, will do. That together, that's your risk, and that's the best understanding at the moment for how people get infected in buildings. Now, there are people in buildings all over the place who are religious. They got their little tape measure, and they're trying to always stand 6 feet apart, doing certain things. The virus doesn't know about the 6 feet rule. Certainly, you have more chance of exposure the closer you are, but the virus can definitely, and has been documented, to travel farther than 6 feet. So that magic barrier, there's no barrier there. The barrier is only in here. And the virus, again, does not care what is in your mind. It just, if it is a living human cell and it has the right receptors and the right cofactors, the virus will infect. That is what it does. That is all it does. Viruses are very simple, just very simple, almost mechanical things. And they're just little bits of biology that keep working. They just keep going as far as they can. And you can't argue with them. You can't, tell them to stay on their side of the line. You cannot reason with these things. They just keep infecting as long as there is an opportunity to keep infecting. And so the way you get rid of them is by limiting opportunities for infection. That's what the masks are for. That's what, like the social distancing, where get to your office, stay in your office with the door shut, and maybe a chair up against the doorknob. That's where all of that comes in. We're just trying to limit the amount of exposure. And yeah, that can work and has worked in many places on the planet. Yeah, and that is a way that we still, even as bad as it is, could begin to dig ourselves out of this mess that, yeah, that we have made by inadequately responding to the coronavirus. Stitch in time saves nine. Yeah, stop this thing at one or two cases, and the world is a very different place right now, or the country's a very different place. But choices were made, and you may not have made them, but you got to live with them. Yeah, that's the world. All right, thanks very much. This has been Ask Dr. Ben.